All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live, and I want to just very quickly and very briefly discuss Star Wars The Last Jedi with you guys a little bit more because I've been looking online and I'm kind of shocked that uh, some folk be saying some kind of things about Star Wars The Last Jedi, and the kind of silliness I see is amazing. Um, Now, I hear a lot of people talk about how Star Wars The Last Jedi, it's off of um, The Empire Strikes Back, and I'm just listening. To me, it reminds me of Return of the Jedi. There are elements of A New Hope in there. Um, there is no, not so much The Empire Strikes Back. To be honest with you, when I think about it, it to me reminds me a lot more of uh, Return of the Jedi. Definitely reminds me of Return of the Jedi, and it does have a lot of the New Hope stuff in it. In fact, the way how the movie begins reminds me a bit of A New Hope, and how some of the middle of the movie is going, where they're being chased, reminds me of A New Hope as well. Hold on a second, I'm gonna be right back. I'm in my room here, just chilling. Let your questions drive this because I think I can give pretty much any answer to Star Wars The Last Jedi. And I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but I know I probably can answer it because I've been looking online at the pet peeves of some of these Star Wars fans, and they're very trivial things. I think what a lot of the fans were expecting, because they talk about lack of continuity between Star Wars Episode 7, which was Force Awakens, and I really don't see it, really, honestly. The kind of stupidness they're talking about. They anticipated certain things happening, and it didn't happen. So it's not lack of continuity. I'm pretty sure there's a flow right there. You can see the continuity, and I'm pretty sure the director took painstaking time to do certain things. So I want to see what kind of questions you guys have on Star Wars: The Last Jedi, because people say it was a horrible film and stuff. I just don't get it. I really don't. So let me hear what people have to say about that film. R2 Lemonin. I'm on a bus coming from work after working 6 hours from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. That is how I'm awake now and watching this on my phone. That's dope, bro. Are you a Star Wars fan, R2? Are you a Star Wars fan? Because, yeah, please bring some questions. I can think of one where Princess Leia, she ends up outside in space and she doesn't get crushed by the vacuum in space. But there's precedent for that. There's precedent for that. That happened before as well in a couple movies where they were in space. So that basically Star Wars has that kind of physics going on with it. You know what I mean? A couple people have been thrown from, I think in the Clone Wars, especially there were some times when some people were thrown from vessels and they ended up in space and they didn't get crushed as it was supposed to, because Star Wars has its own physics going on there. There's a lot of physics in Star Wars that don't make no sense if you really think about it. All right, and how aircraft is supposed to operate in space. That's not how aircraft operate in space, but they have it like that in Star Wars, and we don't question it, you know. Then there's the issue of they're talking about bombing the when the Asian girl bombed the destroyer, you know, dropped some bombs on the destroyer and destroyed a ship. But again, she kicked the weaponry, and the weaponry projects out of the ship. When they release the payload, it jettisons from there, and that's how she was able to bomb the ship. So that's again physics, inertia. You know, when you go into space, there's no brakes in space. So once you push a force, the inertia will just drive it downwards. I don't think Leia didn't use the Force, but it was the Force that directed her to use it to save herself. Do you think that's how that happened? Possible again. But I've seen in Star Wars, I've seen characters floating in space in Star Wars, and they didn't die, you know? So I don't know what the physics of Star Wars really is. But yeah, she could have probably been using the Force after she was blown out. As she was getting blown out, she used the Force to protect herself. That's possible as well. So that makes sense as well, R2. But I don't know what people are really talking about in terms of lack of continuity. And the most of the pet peeves they're talking about is basically has to do with Luke Skywalker, particularly. Luke Skywalker, they say Luke Skywalker shouldn't be facing his own family and fighting his own family. And I'm like, you serious, man? What did he do when he was fighting Darth Vader? He fought Darth Vader twice, right? The second time, he didn't really fight him. He said, I'm not going to fight you. But the first time, he was fighting him, right? So what are you talking about, you know? And in a matter of speaking, Luke didn't even fight Kylo Ren because Luke was using the Force to project himself a certain place. He wasn't actually there, right? So that's also interesting. But if you got any questions with Star Wars, man, some issues you have with Star Wars. First of all, R2, did you like Star Wars: The Last Jedi? Did you love it? Because I find that to be one of the better Star Wars movies that I have seen since The Empire Strikes Back. So and Return of the Jedi was good, but I'm just saying this is one of the better ones, you know. And I don't know if it's the audience doesn't know much about Star Wars. I know that the director's a big Star Wars fan, and I love how he challenges the audience to think, and you can't really predict what's going to happen in a Star Wars movie, which I kind of like. Some people said that they found Rey was overpowered, but then that's stupid because Luke said to her, I hadn't seen this raw power, and the last time I saw it, I wasn't afraid, but now I'm afraid, which has to do with, of course, Kylo Ren. He was training Kylo Ren and he had raw power, and Rey has raw power as well. So what's the issue? You know, it's like when you think about it, what the other thing that people seem to be making a big deal of is that, you know, Luke is this great Jedi, and they forget that Luke has a lot of flaws, and Jedi have a lot of flaws, and Jedi don't follow all the rules of the Jedi Order. If you've even watched the Clone Wars, or even if you have even a small inkling of a history of Star Wars, where you look at the Jedi before Luke Skywalker came on the scene, before Anakin Skywalker came on the scene, we have Jedi. The Jedi Order has been around a long time, before even Yoda, right? You look, the Jedi were forbidden to marry, but there were Jedi that married. They broke the law. You know what I'm saying? And people make it sound like, you know, oh, Anakin, you know, he went to the dark side and stuff. And Jedi have done all kinds of things. And for those people who know the history of the Jedi and so on, they would know Jedi they've given into their emotions at times. Jedi have broken all kinds of rules and codes and all kinds of things that they have in their Jedi Order. But the point behind it is, at the end of the day, they try to keep the rule of thumb, right? But all Jedi, you know, people make it sound like the Jedi are these great people, noble people that always keep the rules. You just look at Obi-Wan Kenobi with Anakin Skywalker, the adventures, again, the Clone Wars with Anakin. I forgot what his Padawan was. She was his Padawan, but she's no longer a Padawan. In fact, she's in Star Wars Rebels now. I forgot what her name is. But again, we look at Anakin and Luke and Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? And those two guys, they did all kinds of things. R2 Lemon says, I took before after selfies from going to see The Last Jedi, and something out of the bus walking home now. Okay, cool. Yeah, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, man, is a dope movie, and I think people are trying to hold this this last cut because they didn't like how they treated Luke, and that Luke died in the end, and that Luke was not embraced. Ahsoka, that's it. Ahsoka Tano. Yeah, Ahsoka. Yeah, Ahsoka. She never was a Jedi. She left the Jedi Order, if you remember R2 Lemon, because the Jedi did not see what was going on and they didn't believe her. She left the Jedi Order. You remember that? Because the Jedi were too proud, and also the Jedi didn't realize what was happening. And Ahsoka Tano, she actually knew because of what's her name? The witch kind of, I forgot what her name is, man. But yeah, Ahsoka Tano, that's why she left the Jedi Order. And she's now in Star Wars Rebels. She's still around. And she pops in and pops out. but she's not a Jedi. And what people don't know is light and dark. Um, it don't always go with the Jedi. Okay, and if you haven't followed the Clone Wars, then there's so much more to the Jedi than meets the eye, and there's so much more. You don't have to be a Jedi to wield light, to know about the Force, and there's all these extra stuff that's going on that people don't really understand. So when this guy put out when he put out The Last Jedi, I mean, he took into account all that stuff from the Clone Wars to before Yoda, before Anakin, before Luke, before Leia, before oh man, I forgot it. I forgot the name of the well, Harrison Ford plays him. I can't believe I'm blanking out like this. It's terrible. It's Han Solo, before Han Solo and all of them. Before these guys were on the scene, we had all of these all this lore with Star Wars, you know what I'm saying? And it's just surprising. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, right? But I've read a Star Wars comic or two. Yes, we have adventures with Luke, but then we have history beyond Luke, before Luke came onto scene. You know, like I keep on telling people, Star Wars, The Last Jedi did some things you've never seen before. We've read about it, but we've never seen it. We've heard about the law of two with Sith laws. They can only be two. And the guy who established that, we saw him in the Clone Wars, where Master Yoda ends up talking to this dude who is dead. But Master Yoda, when he was learning how to wield the Force after he's dead, to be a Force ghost and etc., he meets up with this Jedi that everybody, not Jedi, sorry, Sith Lord, who's the guy that established the law of there can only be two, right? He sees him. And for the first time, we've never seen this before. We've never seen a Sith Lord be killed and his apprentice take over from him, killed by his apprentice, and the apprentice take him over. And it was really cool to see Snoke, I mean, he gets killed by his apprentice. He misunderstands, misreads his apprentice. Yes, his apprentice is making a decision to go to the dark side, but he misreads it. And, you know, he's sensing something, but because his apprentice is so unstable a lot of times, he didn't read it correctly. And that happens with Sith Lords. That's how Sith Lords get killed. And some of them are able to live eternal life. Like they still find the separate eternal life, and they just have to come back. You know what I'm saying? So they're different Sith Lords and all that stuff. And so I'm amazed that these people who talk about, you know, there was this big chase scene. It was just an entire chase scene. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're talking about how, you know, it's borrowed from The Empire Strikes Back or borrowed from A New Hope. There's nothing new. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's nothing new. This is a new story, because we have a new generation of people, and the story goes on, the Star Wars story, but in a fresh new way. And what you got is Finn now. You got Rey. He's no longer Ben Solo. Ben Solo is dead. But the cool thing about it is Luke said to I think he's trying to speak to Ben Solo, but it's really Kylo Ren who's trying to kill him. He still hates him. And Luke says to him, "See you around, buddy." You know, he says that to Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren wants to kill him, but he can't kill him. And we know Luke's going to be a Force ghost for sure, right? Like Yoda was to him. And so it's just one of these things which I just don't get. I don't get how people are making major overminers because they're upset that Luke Skywalker is being removed, that Han Solo has been removed, that we already know we're not going to see Princess Leia anymore because she died in the production, so everybody's gone. The old crew that everybody was attached to in all the movies is gone, all the comics and all the video games, they're gone now. That doesn't mean that because they're gone that you can't tell their story still. We got a Han Solo story coming up, right? So it's not that. It's just that what people have to understand is, in the progressive Star Wars, remember the Star Wars is way before Luke, and yes, the story is built around Luke and Leia and Han Solo and so on. But John Lucas, he took that and expanded it way out there so that we have a history going way before Yoda. Okay. We had the Jedi Knights, and we had the Sith Lords. We have a history going way back, and then we have a history going way forward now. And this is what they're doing. They're writing new stories about it. And I just don't get why that's a problem for people. People so resistant to change. They're bad mouthing this primarily because of Luke Skywalker, which is the flagship of this thing. Maybe they wanted him to live forever, but the actor can't live forever. He's gonna have to give it up at some point. And so, you know, I'm just cool with the fact that they killed off Luke. He's dead. And we're looking at a new generation. We're going to see things progress with that. And there's nothing wrong with Luke. And the way how Luke died, to me, was, I thought it was a very honorable way to die. He went down with honor. Like in the Krypton series, you know, I have to do a spoiler on Krypton in a minute. But in the Krypton series, I thought it was an honorable way how the parents of Seg-El went. She let them go with honor. That was Zod. She allowed them to go with honor. So that was cool. You know what I'm saying? And all I'm saying to people is that with these movies, yes, you may be passionate about Star Wars, but you got to be realistic. You got to understand what the story is telling you. You got to understand why the director is allowing people to understand what is going on in this movie. And the movie Star Wars The Last Jedi has so much to say about the state of affairs in the world today. And again, I find it hypocritical that people are embracing Black Panther, but they're trying to shit on Star Wars. They're trying to shit on Justice League, two movies which had much more to say than Black Panther has, to be honest with you. Even though Black Panther is a damn good movie, they have a lot more to say. And so I just don't get that. So I would like to get from the Star Wars fans who say they know about Star Wars and all of that, you Star Wars fans, you talk to me, because I'm willing and ready to listen to you and to give you the answers to what your questions are, because you have questions. And most of your questions are minor questions, in my opinion, but I'm not a big Star Wars fan. So for you, it might be a big deal. But from what I see, Luke behaved just like how Luke usually behaves, but just that we're seeing the negative side of Luke in this case, and not so much the positive side of him. And people will say, well, Luke was usually an inspirational person. Yes, of course, but people change over time. And Luke has always been a guy who, and again, just because you are a Jedi doesn't mean that there aren't certain traits about you that you could do better with. And Luke was able to see the truth in the whole situation, that the Jedi Order, because of them, that's why the Republic fell. And Luke fell for that same trap that the Jedi Order had. And this is why he pushed Ben Solo to the dark side. It was his mistake twice-fold. And he failed Ben, even though Ben was still being carried across to the dark side again by another Sith Lord. And he was very powerful, and he was being influenced by that. So again, what we find is that history repeats itself. Okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi went into hiding after Darth Vader had come to prominence, which was Anakin, his Padawan, right? Luke has to go into hiding because his Padawan, Ben Solo, becomes great, rises up the Empire. He's a little bit unstable, just like Anakin Skywalker was. And this is the situation we're dealing with. Anakin was his uncle, became Darth Vader. Ben Solo is definitely walking down the dark path. There were no prophecies for Ben Solo, so he's totally going down the dark path. He doesn't look like he's going to repent anytime soon. Luke can speak to him using the Force, but it is what it is. So people look at Luke and Leia, how they're able to connect with one another, and we see Ben Solo's character, which is Kylo Ren. We see Kylo Ren connect with Rey. Okay, they're able to connect with each other, and again, people have a problem with that, an issue with that, as if you have to be a Jedi or something to do that. No, it's the Force. And if you watch the Clone Wars, some people can Right now, here's the funny thing. Right now, Ahsoka Tano is not a Jedi Knight. She's not a Jedi Knight. She's not in Star Wars Rebels. She's not. But she knows all about the Force. She knows how to manipulate the Force. She knows how to wield the Force. She knows how to fight. So you can't come and be telling me, oh, she needs all this training and stuff to be. No, the Force is there. And once you are Force conscious and Force sensitive, that's what happens. Okay. And we all know Snoke tried to influence and manipulate Rey as well. Okay. To make that connection possible. And Luke saw it and he tried to break it. So at the end of the day, I just don't get it, but it is what it is. It's 10:02 in the night. I have to wrap this discussion up. R2 Lebanon, man, I didn't see anybody really asking any questions, but I'm going to continue to throw this out there because Star Wars: The Last Jedi, I think, is an excellent film on so many different levels. I heard people talk about also the other Asian young lady who they said her role in the movie was not important. They said that Ray Finn, he didn't have a good role either. It was a secondary role. It wasn't even important to the film. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Ray was important to the film in a number of ways. And the Asian girl, they were able to stall for time in some respects because they had to break into the ship, and in a way they sort of deflected, or they were able to occupy the attention of the people on the ship long enough so that the assault that was led off by the lady with the pink hair, I forgot what her name is, and she slams through the ship, you know, well, they bought enough time for that to happen. Okay. Yeah, so I'm cool with what I saw in terms of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Rose Tico, right, there you go. The Asian girl's name is Rose Tico. I liked her. I liked her role in the film. I liked her role in the film, and I liked what she offered to the film and her story, her backstory, the importance of it. Punk, 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 punk. Oh, punk. Oh, with the pink hair. Okay. All right, cool. Punk. I liked what she added to it. And I liked how the movie ended with going back to her world and basically the kid on her world, the kids who were in slavery in her world, looking up at the sky and getting that hope. Pink hair general's name was Holso. There you go. See, you know the names better than I do, right off the top of the head, because I don't remember their names right now. I gotta go and watch that movie again. But I like how it ended on a hopeful note where they were looking up into the sky. So what are some of your damn autocorrect? Okay. So what were some of the problems you had with the movie, and did you like it? Because you seem to have been into it. Did you like the movie? I talked a bit about it. I haven't talked a whole lot about that movie, but I really enjoyed it a lot. And that was, how many times did I see that movie? Only once. I only watched it once, actually. Holdo. Okay, that was the general's name. Okay, and she was right. She was dead on. I like how they kind of spent it to make her look like she was the villain, but she was actually the one who was making more sense. And she had to give her life for that. She had to give her life to clean up the mess that the other guys were making. And I liked, there's another thing I liked about this movie that I don't think anybody's really talking much about, which is that when you look at the story given with Ray and Rose Tico, that's the name of the girl. I like that Rose Tico, she didn't die, thankfully. But in sacrificing, crashing into Rey's vehicle and saving his life, they're able to show that not every single case is for you to be a hero. I think in many respects, people think of uh, reckless bravery and trying to accomplish objective at the point in time as being a hero and heroic. And I love how the director went against that about 3 or 4 times. Whereas usually in a typical Star Wars movie, gung-ho, they're always gung-ho and they're taking the risk and they're going for it. You know what I'm saying? You'd think of Han Solo used to do that in A New Hope and so on. They would take the risk and go all the way. But in this case, they say, no, going all the way is not always, you need to live sometimes to see tomorrow, because it's pointless sometimes to do certain things. And that hope. Right. Yeah. Rey she was strong with the Force, but she wasn't from any line that had to do with Leia, or even related to yeah, man. I hope you get some rest, R2, because it's only 10:08 p.m. by where I am, and I got to drink some more water and just wind down and go to sleep. But yeah, I mean, she wasn't anybody of any great family line, and of course, Kylo Ren probably knew about her because she was probably one of the force wielding kids that maybe were brought to, I'm only assuming here, that Luke probably brought to teach. So that's probably how he knows about Rey and her past. And apparently, I'm only assuming here, I'm assuming here that Kylo Ren probably, that's how he knew about Rey. Because the first time they met, she actually was stronger than him, if you do remember. She was able, the Force is really, really strong with her. Really, really strong with her. She's like epically strong with the Force. She just doesn't know everything about it yet. And I love the description that Luke gives for the Force, using the Force and manipulating the Force. I love that definition, of what the Force is and where it is, and it's between everything, it's in everything, it's among everything. I love that. And it was a very clear, distinct definition. And it almost feels like it's very real. Like it wasn't just something he was saying, but something that we should also sort of take note of in our personal lives as well. So I thought that was very interesting in that respect. But I am very curious to see where Star Wars will go from here. Now we know that we have the clear demarcation. We know what's going on with Kylo Ren and where he's at, and we know what's going on with the Rebels and Rey, where she's at. Another very interesting thing about it is that Kylo Ren is still, he's not perfected the ways of the Sith. He's committed to being a Sith now, but he's not a full-blown Sith Lord. I like it how Luke called the lightsabers laser words. He was just, laser words. And that's interesting, yes. But as I was saying before, I like that Kylo Ren is kind of like this child leader. This child leader who still needs guidance, and the general has to guide him. And I even suggest to him, hey, that's not a good idea to do this, So it's very interesting how the villain will continue in this story and develop, because we've seen these characters now develop over the course of these movies. Hey man, R2 Lemon, and I'm glad you reached home, man. I'm so happy for you. I'm glad you're safely home as well. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, because I'm kind of tired of hearing people talk bad about Star Wars The Last Jedi. I just looked recently. I know it's out on home video and everything. And I just don't get how people can misunderstand this movie. It is very clear cut. It's very straightforward. There's some deleted scenes where you have the caretakers for the island, and there's a very telling scene where Rey goes speeding off thinking that, you know, they're in danger because Luke says that, but Luke is really pulling a mean joke on her. And Luke comes back and teaches her this lesson, that you can't always go gung-ho running into things. You know, sometimes you have to weigh the whole matter. And it's very interesting. That's just one of the themes of the movie. It's not just about trying to be, you know, filled with chivalry and heroics and trying to be a hero and save the day. It's not really only about that. It's about also thinking about the best possible situation, evaluating the situation, and sometimes not even trying to look like a hero. Maybe you will look like a villain, but at the end of the day, doing the right thing for the situation so that people can really benefit from it. And it doesn't mean you have to go gung-ho and attack an enemy or something like that. Sometimes it means retreat. Maybe look like a coward for a day. And so I found that this particular Star Wars teaches some counterintuitive things about how to take action when you're doing what we call peaceful protest of something or a revolution. It really teaches some very instructive things about how to proceed when you're hopeful and you have to protect or defend yourself and your rights, especially when your rights are such that they are in jeopardy, but it's almost illegal now to stand up for yourself and your rights. And I've seen that in also, what other movie did I see that in, where these people were doing something wrong, but it was necessary. Can't remember the movie right now. He actually did something wrong. Was it Krypton? Krypton. I just saw it. The television show Krypton is about civil disobedience. It's about standing up for the right thing. And even though you may be called treasonous or a heretic, you know, standing up for the right thing. And so that's what I loved about Star Wars. And it's very instructive on how to proceed to mobilize people to stand up for themselves. And if you have to, what we call civil disobedience, organize yourself in civil disobedience so that you can, it's called civil disobedience. So you know how to proceed. And that's what's very instructive about that Star Wars episode 8. You know, it's fantastic in that respect. Rogue One was about sacrifice. Rogue One was about sacrifice. Star Wars episode 8 was about mobilizing yourself so that you can have the hope. And being hopeful is not always going in there guns blazing. That isn't, yes, you may have a chance, but it may be very, very slim. When you can have a bigger chance of proceeding, you know. So I found that very interesting. Star Wars episode 8, The Last Jedi. Definitely a new breed of Jedi is out there, and that's Rey. And we'll see how things go with them in episode 9. I'm really interested in how it, and I love how Princess Leia is so very graceful and gracious in how she behaves to this group of young, very energetic people who really want to go gung-ho over everything, but she's there to calm them down, give them that level-mindedness. And I think Rey was sort of sucking that in. So it should be interesting how Rey proceeds from there on in as well, because they're quite inexperienced, and it's a whole new set of people on the scene. So I find that very intriguing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got to go in my bed very soon. It's very late, but R2 Lemonin just came home. I'm happy for him. He's able to get to his home and more than likely rest up. And Dave Ethan, I hope your day at work was good. I'll be talking to you guys again at another time. I have to wrap it up now. It's about 10:16 in the night, and I have to get some rest myself. But that's what I have to say about the Last Jedi for now. Love to talk some more about it, so we'll try and get something in, maybe tomorrow, maybe if not tomorrow, maybe sometime next week. This week here that's coming up. All right, guys. I hope you have a good night. R2 Limited, Dave Ethan. Uh, you guys have a good one, man. You have a good rest, bro. You worked hard. All right. You guys have a great one.